Wow. Nice to see so many of you present today. So, welcome to this press conference following the Foreign Affairs Council of the Ministers of Defense. HRVP Borrell will brief you on the outcome of the meeting today, and then he will take some of your questions. HRVP, you have the floor.
Thank you, Nabila. Well, today we have had another interesting council, defense format, a long one. We are 2 hours late. Before the council, we hold the European Defence Agency steering board. As you know, the steering board of the Defence Agency is being composed by the defence ministers of the member states. I think that the European Defence Agency is not very well known, and it deserves to be better known, because they do an extraordinary work, and there is not a lot of knowledge about the result of this work. Now the war has been an occasion for the work of the European Defence Agency put on the news, and on the reflection and on the work of the European Council and the Commission. According with the strategic compass, today we have established the Hub for European Defence Innovation. The purpose is to stimulate, facilitate and support cooperation among member states on the innovation in the military field. It is the first deliverable of the strategic compass. Then we went to the analysis of the defense investment gap that we will present tomorrow together with the Commission in response to the tasking from the leaders in Versailles. And if I can summarize the result, is that the Europeans need to spend together more and better. The three things. And since it looks like that there is a certain readiness to spend more, it is the occasion to spend together, because spending together is the best way of spending better. If every member state increase its defense expenditure multiplying by X its current expenditure, the result will be a big waste of money, because we will be multiplying our gaps, our loopholes, and not decreasing our duplications. By the contrary, increasing our duplications. The analysis that the agenda has been doing systematically every year has been very much useful in the preparation of the report that the College will study tomorrow and will be presented to the leaders. You know that the agency produces this coordinated annual review on defense, the CART report, or the capability development plan, where we study what do we have, which are our capabilities, and what do we need to have. And this is the gap. The gap is what we have and what we should have, or what we need to have. And taking into account the current security context, marked by the return of war to Europe, this analysis is becoming much more important. The analysis looks at the gaps in the short term. The first thing to do is to refill our stockpiles of military material. In the medium term, we have to augment our existing capabilities, and in the long term, we have to reinforce and modernize. Can I put a figure to the gap? Yes. If we had been spending on defense every year since 2009 until 2018, the same amount of money that we were spending in 2009, every year the same amount of money than in 2009 for 9 years, we would have spent in defense 160 billion more. Now, we are at the same level that in 2008. We have recovered this gap, but the cumulated differences, adding up all the annual gaps with respect to the 2009, it makes 160 billion. It has been a strong disarmament process, a silent disarmament process that the Europeans have been passing through. I'm very happy, because less military expenditure means more money for other purposes. But now we face the consequences of this cumulated gap, and we have to recover from these dynamics. Then we move to the how to recover. This is a big question. On what? Medium term, refilling stocks, short term, refilling stocks, medium term, increase the existing capabilities, long term, to reinforce and modernize. It's going to be a big task and a big occasion also for our industry, and the war in Ukraine has been a wake-up call, making clear that we have to fill in these gaps and increase our defense capabilities. Then we went to the FAC defense. We updated the ministers to the latest development in Mali. Let me summarize. We don't have the guarantees by the transition authorities on non-interference by the Russian mercenaries. By the contrary, we have seen an increasing pattern of collusion and allegations of grave human rights abuses being investigated by the United Nations, and the latest regrettable decision by Mali to pull out from the G7 Sahel only add to this. So we decided to reaffirm our 1 month ago provisional decision of suspending operational training to form units of the Malian Armed Forces and the National Guard. We have also suspended the delivery of military equipment under the European Peace Facility, who was on the way. This doesn't mean that we are leaving Sahel. On the contrary, we want to do more and to do better. And for that, we will relocate our resources, our military resources, in the neighboring countries. We will look to what's happening in the Gulf of Guinea, and we will be decreasing our effectives on the Mali itself, since we are not going to continue doing military training. We will decrease our effectives. On the next weeks, we will present a strategic review of the Mali mission to the member states, but we are not cancelling this mission. And then we went to the compass. You know that the compass is a very operational document with 80 concrete actions and a time to deliver. And 51 of these 80 concrete actions have to be implemented already this year. And we are working on it. And we have explained to the ministers what are we doing and what we expect the member states to do on space and on fighting against information and manipulation, on developing this rapid capacity deployment force. 51 of these measures has to be implemented this year. Then we went on the study on how can we make our CSDP missions and operations more effective. This is another request from the compass. More flexibility in order to respond to our partners' needs. More targeted training accompanying equipment, and we cannot have a fit-for-all formula. We have to be able to adapt the missions to the current security environment. We should try, for example, to authorize executive tasks, not just training, but executive tasks, using Article 44, which allows a member to agree to execute certain tasks that could represent an executive mission under the European Union banner without having to be all together. We don't need unanimity. Well, we need unanimity, but not a unanimous participation. So the ones who doesn't want to participate can let the others go. We have also to prevent better and not only respond to crisis. We have to act before the crisis erupted. This is a good example. The Gulf of Guinea is a good example. We know that there are some crises that look like the Sahelian crisis to tackle terrorism. So that's happening in Benin, Togo, and Burkina Faso. So we need to act before the crisis erupts, and we have to be prepared to provide support to our partners well before we are in an urgent situation. We need smaller, more agile teams that can address specific requests for targeted training, advice, equipment, and accompaniment. This is the formula. Then we went to the Russian aggressions against Ukraine. We were joined by the Ukrainian Minister of Defense, Mr. Reznikov, via VTC certainly, and the NATO Deputy Secretary General, Mr. Joanna. Minister Reznikov gave us an account of the situation on the ground and the needs of the Ukrainian army that we are continue supporting. I think that this support is making a difference in the battlefield. In the battlefield capacity of the Ukrainian army, we need to sustain the effort. We have to replenish resources and stockpiles. And I have to say that this support at that moment is critical because the war is in a critical moment, in a turning point. And we cannot let Ukraine to run out of equipment. And we will not. We will not let Ukraine to get out of equipment because the battle in the Donbass is in a moment in which the counteroffensive of the Ukrainians and pushing the Russians and having some extraordinary success like the one the other day against a column of Russian tanks shows that the Ukrainians continue having an incredible capacity to resist and to counterattack. The additional tranche of 500 million about the policy deliberations on NATO membership. They can count on the full support of the European Union. This will increase the number of member states that are also members of NATO. And this will strengthen and increase the cooperation and the security in Europe. So let's hope that this membership will come soon, and on this way NATO and European Union will be two sets of member states with more intersections. It's an important important geopolitical change. Have a look at the map on the Baltic Sea. Have a look at the coast of the Baltic Sea. You will be the big differences with Sweden and Finland being members of NATO. As I said, it was a long and intense Defense Council. I am at your disposal for more information.
Thanks a lot. And We will take questions. We're very happy to have many of you here in the press room. I will start by Nicolas, who has the first question.
Monsieur le représentant, bonjour, en français.
In French, please, if possible.
Oh, je lisais en français.
I was just saying in French, if possible. Yes, please go ahead. On the question of Finland and Sweden, we know that there's a certain interim period before joining NATO fully. There's Article 42.7, which could be triggered if Russia were to want to attack. Are Europeans prepared to respond to a potential request from the Swedes or the Finns if they were to want to implement this? And if I may, on a different topic now, on Mali, you were saying that you're not leaving Mali, but can we actually stay, given all of these decisions coming from Mali, bad news every day? And is everyone going to leave? What about Spain? Yes, on the question of Mali. In order to cancel the mission and just pack up and go, you would need a unanimous decision taken in Council. And you know how hard it is to get unanimous decisions. But we haven't even put that question. The mission is not being cancelled. It's still there. It will be picked up later. It has to be restructured. We have more than 1,000 members of staff. I mean, we don't need mass training now. So training was the main activity. We have tens or thousands of troops. We stopped a month ago, and we're not going to continue because we don't have the necessary assurances on the Malian side. So we're stopping that. And so that means that we will have to bring back some of our personnel. Spain isn't leaving, but they will be reducing their personnel numbers, and they were major contributors to the Mali mission. Of course, the numbers will be reduced. Germany has personnel members, and they're not staying in Mali, but in Niger on the other side. So we have to look at a mission which is regional in nature. It's also Niger, Burkina, and not just Mali. But so the mission will remain. It will be refocused. In order to work on other goals, such as high-level training in compliance with human rights, and the high-level advisory functions to the Malian army if possible. But when it comes to large numbers of people and the need for large numbers of people, that is stopping that part. But we are staying to do other things with far fewer people. That doesn't mean that everyone's going to leave. Well, whatever we do, we have to do in a coordinated fashion. This is a mission, and each country will have to propose what it does in an organized fashion, and this will have to be done under the aegis of our coordination here for Mali. I was going to say something, but perhaps I won't. Article 42.7. Well, yes, it's there, isn't it? And it states that if a state is attacked on its own territory, if there is armed aggression against a member of the European Union, this country may ask the others for assistance. May ask the others for assistance. And the others are obliged to do so with all their means, all means at their disposal. That's what it says. That's what it says. So the country in question has to make a request, but if they do make a request, then the others have to provide assistance. It's not they may, you know, I've got other things to do. No, there's an obligation to do so in the treaty, but it's not automatic. The country which is the victim of aggression, I hope this will never happen, that country has to make a request. Thank you. Now I'd like to take questions from our colleagues online. Tommaso, please.
Oui, bonjour, est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Good afternoon, can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. Yes, I have a question. This morning, the Treasury Secretary in the US said, and I'll quote what she said, just a second.
Elle a dit que
She said,
commend European leaders for their proposal to phase out all Russian energy supplies within 6 months, and I recognize the solidarity of the European people in accepting the implications of this proposal. Est-ce que vous...
now, could you tell us when European leaders made this commitment? As far as I know, this wasn't done in public. And Secretary is, of course, a former President of the Federal Reserve, so I can't imagine that she would make any mistakes. Thank you.
Je dirais pas qu'elle fait des erreurs, mais...
Well, I wouldn't say that she makes mistakes, but it could be a misinterpretation. A complete phase-out of Russian energy, well, as far as I know, this is not a decision, firm decision, but maybe there's just been a misinterpretation of some data or figures. I can't comment on this kind of declaration. I'm not familiar with the details.
James, you have the floor.
James Bays from Al Jazeera. As you said today, the news of the day is Sweden and Finland, and very specific things have happened while you've been in that meeting. President Biden has asked the Prime Minister of Sweden and the President of Finland to come to the White House on Thursday. The Swedish Foreign Minister has signed the letter requesting membership of NATO, and perhaps most importantly, the Finnish Parliament has voted 188 in favour of joining NATO, just 8 against. These things that have happened today, what message do they send, do you think, to President Putin?
Je ne pense pas que les Suédois et les Finlandais.
Well, I don't think the Swedes and the Finns were sending a message to President Putin. Well, apparently President Putin doesn't feel concerned by this decision, and I'm pleased to hear that.
Jacopo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Jacopo Regazzi with Politico. Je comprends que quand on parle de défense, on parle...
Well, when you talk about France, I know you should speak French, but I'm going to put my question in English.
Before you mention the refiling stocks, my question is where the money will come from. If I understand correctly, there will be an off-budget fund because the MFF cannot be used for military expenditure, where member states can chip in. And first of all, I would like to understand whether this is correct. And secondly, whether this money will also be used to refill also the EPF, because so far 2 billion, as you just said, have been spent, so there will be other 3 billion for the rest of the years. And so my second question is whether this money will also be used to refill the European Peace Facility. Thanks.
We can talk about European defense in English. Happily, I am not able to speak in German, but it would be equally appropriated. The common defense is not something that belongs to the French. Look, first, certainly we cannot fund military expenditures with the European Union budget. We finance the defense industry through the European Defense Fund, qui devrait s'appeler European Industrial Defense Fund, parce que finance.
Because it finances the defense industry, but doesn't buy weapons. European Peace Facility is not part of the EU budget. It's a budget under an intergovernmental agreement, and it doesn't come under European budgetary rules. So you have to do what the members have decided. But these resources are not huge, as you said. We have 3 billion left, and that won't take us that far. We're not going to use that to stock up European arsenals.
Le financement.
It's not gap funding. Funding will have to be covered by each member state. I mean, we could always contemplate other solutions, but at the moment, funding armies is, of course, national business. And on the European Peace Facility,
Resources for this year. Et on peut toujours les remplir.
we can always restock and refill, of course, if member states decide to do so. It's not like the European budget. This is an intergovernmental decision. It's more flexible. You don't need the agreement from the Parliament. All you need is for the member states, which are members of the EPF, to reach an agreement and to increase the amounts they've decided upon at the start of the year. But we have this facility.
The lady in white.
The lady in white.
At the end. She's at the end. Yuri, il faut lui répondre.
J'en vois 3 peut-être.
Elle est tout au fond. Il faut lui répondre en anglais.
En anglais? Okay.
So thank you very much, Yuri Shiko, Deutsche Welle. So I want to come back to English to ask you about Russian war against Ukraine. So you said now it is a turning point. So can you tell us what is the EU assessment? What is
Turning point? Yes. Point
Yeah.
de basculement.
Yes, so what is your assessment? How long will Russia be able to continue its offensive? Because now we still see that Russia is trying to continue its offensive on Donbas. So what is your assessment? How long it will be able to continue to sustain this effort? And then you said that countries want to continue providing weapons to Ukraine. So, but given this huge gap that you talked about, will the EU countries have enough weapons to provide to Ukraine to sustain this effort, to help Ukraine to defend itself, and as you said, to start counteroffensive in other parts to liberate other parts of Ukraine that have been occupied by Russia?
Yes, certainly, the member states have enough resources to continue supporting Ukraine at the same pace. No problem. And I am not a military expert. I don't know. I have a military staff, and I got a lot of advice and information. I see what the satellites see. But frankly speaking, I wouldn't dare to make an hypothesis about how long Russia can resist. We are talking about Russia resist. The word resist, we use it with respect to Russia. But if it is true that Russia has lost about 15% of their troops at the beginning of the war, this is a world record on the losses of an army invading a country.
Thank you.
And you have the list of the material that the Russians seem to have lost on tanks, artillery, drones, losses which has been verified. That's also an incredible amount of losses. I don't know if they can refill it, but the amount of losses of the Russian army is really impressive.
And last but not least.
Thank you, Katerina Tani from Monch. I have a general question on cooperation, defense cooperation. In the past, the increase in national budgets for defense haven't always translated into increased cooperation. So do you think that this time the overall geopolitical situation and the need to replenish the stocks will translate into an improved cooperation in defense for member states? And if yes, why? Thank you.
Because there are good reasons. Because until now we were in a theoretical situation. On était dans une situation without a specific danger. We were not facing a threat, a concrete threat. And you know, Europe is answering in front of a crisis. We need a crisis in order to react. That's a pity that it has to be on a military crisis, on a war that represents the losses of human lives and destructions in Ukraine. But in any case, it has been a wake-up call. Now everybody understands that we need to be more capable of facing situations like ones that we have been taken out of our imagination. And now they become real. So there is a strong incentive to act. And to act the best way. And it's clear that common procurement, common research and development, pooling capacities, avoiding diversification of materials, different types of materials, all the doctrine that the European Defence Agency has been creating along the years, and this agency was created for that, was created to push for a common defence capacity. And now is the moment for the agency to use the knowledge that it has been producing, and I am sure that the member states will understand that in order to spend better, they have to spend together. To spend together, to spend better. And since they want to spend more, they will do it in a better way if they do together. The number of expenditure which is being done in a, let's say, in a common approach has been decreasing. Against any rationality has been decreasing. So that is time to turn this trend up and to do otherwise.
Thank you very much. This is the end of this press conference, and thank you everyone for your patience. Thank you, High Representative, and thank you to the interpreters for your work today. Thanks. Have a nice evening.
Thank you and good afternoon.